November 2013, my husband was offered a job in Northwest Arkansas. We were living in Eastern Oregon at the time. That's where we were born and raised. We lived there until we were 33 years old. And he graduated college at 33, actually at 32, and hunted for a job all over the Pacific Northwest for 8 or 9 months. Nothing was working out. And so he decided to branch out a little bit. And it's a long story how it all happened, but we ended up getting a job here in Northwest Arkansas. And I can remember they flew us out to like house hunt, and just kind of get things in order. He had to take like a drug test and just the different things he had to do, to finalize his employment. And so they flew us out here for the weekend, and we looked all over for a home. We had 9 children at home and not a lot of money. Jamie getting this job doubled our income immediately, but it was still difficult to support a family of 11 on the income. Anyway, so we hunted everywhere trying to find something that would work for us. And I can remember that a friend of mine who I had been blogging online, for a long time, and she was kind of a blog buddy. She recommended that we check out Bella Vista because she said there were bigger homes here and that they were cheaper, than going down into the Bentonville, Rogers area, where lots of people were trying to find work, right? When we came into Bella Vista, I couldn't believe that this place would be cheaper than the city. In Oregon, if you have a place that has beauty, it's going to be the expensive part. And the cheaper stuff is going to be in the city, in the town, right? At least where we were from. And so coming here and just seeing these glorious expanses of trees and all of the water and the wildlife. Honestly, I was just in shock. I could not believe that we could possibly live in a place as beautiful as this. Before we moved to Northwest Arkansas, we lived in a pretty slummy part of town. I actually want to say the whole town was slummy, but I know that I have friends and family that absolutely love that town. But for me, yeah, I was glad to get out of there. We had crime just outside of our door. We lived next to a levee along the river, where there was a lot of crime, murders even, lots of assaults and lots of noise, lots of partying, and our young children, of course, were having to listen to that, having to be exposed to that. And I had always just asked God, please, someday, I just want to live in a place where I can take my kids for walks, where we can have nature study, where we can just enjoy the beauty of the place that we live. And there was a lot of beauty in Eastern Oregon, don't get me wrong. It's just that it wasn't right outside my front door, right? If you've been watching my vlogs lately, you've noticed a theme, and that is that I'm really trying to find the beauty in the place that I live, not searching for it abroad. As Jane Austen says in Northanger Abbey, that a young woman must look for adventure abroad if she can't find it in her own hometown. I'm really trying to find it in my own hometown, because this year I'm not planning to go abroad. And there is a lot of beauty here. And when I remember what I prayed for so long, to be able to find a place where I could take my kids out to enjoy nature, where there was beauty, where there was little or no crime, where we felt safe outside the house, somewhere that was positive. I came from a very negative environment, and all of those things and more is what the Father has given us living here in Northwest Arkansas. A lot of it we've had to learn to make ourselves, right? To make the joyful, happy moments ourselves, right? And find our own happiness and peace. Seal it for thy courts above. Come thou fount, come thou King, come thou precious Prince of Peace. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Seal it for thy courts above. It's getting to the point now where it's very, very difficult to shop downtown. There is a tea shop that I love downtown. There is also a bookshop that I love, but there is just no parking. And I guess I'm just not willing to park blocks and blocks and blocks away just to run in real quick and have a look. I think it's not that I don't want to walk. I think it's that I'm a little bitter. Growth can be really great. I understand that. But it has been difficult to watch the extremely fast growth that has happened here in Northwest Arkansas. And I am so thankful for the part that I live in, because although my street started out just an empty forested cul-de-sac, as you know, we were the only house, now it's getting filled up and people are tearing away my forest so they can build homes for themselves. Even though it's still secluded, and for now anyway, we still have a little bit of forest on either side of our house. And so I am thankful that after visiting the busy city that Northwest Arkansas has become, just one great big metropolis, that I can go home to my little forest and enjoy the peace and the quiet and the lack of traffic and the parking. I was thinking I would come here to the public library and see if I can shop a little bit in their bookshop. And amazingly, there is a parking spot open right here. So if I could squeeze myself in here without hitting anyone or anything, I'm gonna go in there and have a look around. There is a ton of people here and kids. I wonder if maybe there's like a summer reading program or something going on. I don't actually use this library. Like, I don't actually ever check anything out from here, but I really do love the bookstore. The prices are low and the selection is really good. And I have found a lot of good vintage editions of various things in here. So I'm gonna go check it out. All right, all you ladies and gents, it's time to examine the loot. So I organized everything out on my bed and then realized it's kind of a lot. I don't really want to haul it all to my library and reorganize it. So we're going to do this film in here in this not so gloriously beautiful background. I should probably get some more stuff for my walls. Actually, the other side of my bedroom is really pretty. That's usually where I sit in front of my desk. But anyway, you guys don't care. Okay, so let's look at what I got. So I've got stuff from the library book sale, or the library book shop, and then I have stuff from a thrift shop that I went to today. I've got stuff that I ordered online. I've got stuff that people sent to me. I've got stuff from last week. I didn't even show you guys when I went up to Joplin area and shopped a little bit up there. So yeah, I got a lot of stuff to show you. Okay, so first of all, I've been playing this game with Facebook people that I don't know. I've told you guys about this, where I'm in part of this group that I never ever do anything except once a month we all buy each other a book. The rest of the time, like, I don't go to the local meetings, I don't talk online, I don't know what the deal is, but I really love doing this thing where we buy each other a book. So we did that on Sunday, and my partner bought me The Little Duke by Charlotte Mary Young, which I thought was so sweet. This is, somebody who is just reprinting stuff that's in the public domain, so it's fairly short. I've been wanting to read a lot of Charlotte Mary Young and kind of get a feel for how she writes, so that'll be good. And then she also sent me these pens. So they're kind of like earth tones. There's like kind of a brick red and a plum purple, green, and then 2 shades of blue. I really love these. Okay, so here are some books that I purchased brand new. This one is from Barnes & Noble. This is The Pursuit of Happiness by Jeffrey Rosen. How classical writers on virtue inspired the lives of the founders and defined America. So it just kind of talks about how the founders, because they had a classical education, they took some of the principles from Greek and Roman politics and philosophy and things, and it helped them to define how they wanted the country to be laid out, right? Politically. And so I thought that might be interesting. It might be kind of dense. So it's not something I'm going to read like in June, for Red, White, and June, but I just thought it sounded interesting, and I was looking for something nonfiction that was America related. And so yeah, I think that little by little over time, whenever I do decide to read this, I'll probably really get a lot out of it. Then next, I last month talked to you guys about that book called Jesus, what's it called? Something about Jesus and medieval art. I can't remember. It's up here. Anyway, I made a whole video on it and I can't remember what it's called. But, and I had talked about how I just don't read a whole lot of like religious nonfiction. I don't read about other religions really at all, unless it just happens to be in the book I'm reading on another subject. But I don't read a lot of nonfiction Christian books. Like, I don't read like Christian self-help. I don't read like very many like devotional type things. I just don't. But I was thinking after I read that book, and I was pleasantly surprised and thinking, well, maybe if it was something like this, I might be interested. Kind of a history of Christianity type thing. Seems to be kind of what I'm interested in right now when it comes to, Christian or Bible-based nonfiction. And so I found this book. This is called Jesus and the Jewish Roots of the Eucharist. And the Eucharist, as well as the Jewish history of it, or Jewish history of anything, really does interest me. It says, unlocking the secrets of the Last Supper. Our family has celebrated the biblical feasts for probably 6 years now. And so we're really aware of kind of like a lot of the Jewish traditions, especially around Passover. And then kind of compared to what the Bible, teaches about what to do during those different observances. So something that's just been kind of on my mind and something that I feel like I have kind of a basic understanding of, but this one sounded interesting. And I think one of the things that the author does here is shows how the biblical symbology, which oftentimes is different from the Jewish tradition symbology. A lot of the things that Jews do for these different observances are not necessarily in the actual, first 5 books of the Bible, Torah-based stuff. It's stuff that they've, developed over time and whatever. I won't go into all that. But it's interesting when you look at the biblical feasts from a Christian perspective, from a, someone who believes in Messiah. There is so much symbolism in the spring and fall feasts, and the how much of the spring, how much they point to the things that Jesus did. All the spring feasts really point towards Jesus's first coming, and I'm under the impression that the fall feasts point to Jesus's return. So that's, obviously way too much for this video, but I think it will be interesting to see what kind of symbolism, etc., can be found in this book. And yeah, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, and then I got this book. Okay, oh yeah, this is why I got these two. So lately I've been reading books that you kind of read over a year, right? So it's like they'll either have 12 chapters or they'll be kind of like divided up seasonally, like in the months or the seasons or whatever. I've just come across a few of those lately. And so I came across 2 more. And so I was like, I'm going to get those because I don't know. It's just a thing. A book that you can read over the course of a year, right? And so this one is called About Time by David Rooney. It says A History of Civilization in 12 Clocks. So it's a historical study of the different ways that we have kept time throughout the ages. So that'll be like a fun, I don't know if I'll do it over a year or if I'll do it faster, but kind of sounded interesting. And then the other one that's similar to that is called Threads of Empire, A History of the World in 12 Carpets by Dorothy Armstrong. I mean, how random, right? 12 carpets. So I don't know. I just like stuff like this. So one year, 2015, I'm pretty sure, I went to over to England and we started in Manchester. Hi, Molly. And then we went on to like Macclesfield and on our way to York, I think that's what we were doing. But anyway, at Macclesfield, we got to visit it was like a silk museum, I think, and it had all of the machines that they would use during Victorian times to weave tapestries, carpets, weave things. And we learned all about that industry. And it was so interesting to me, just how they would, the different patterns. They had these pattern cards. They're like, well, they looked like sort of like a computer board, because that's what the computer board was actually based on, were these cards that had different holes punched out in them. And whatever the pattern was, when you put it on with your thread and stuff, then that would make a certain pattern on the carpet based on the holes punched in that card, right? So that is actually the inspiration for like I don't know, what's the word I'm trying to think of for the computer, like program, like, and it's a whole thing, but it made me really interested in these carpets or tapestries. And so I thought that I will probably enjoy that. This video is going to be so stinking long. Okay, and then I ordered Uncle Tom's Cabin because this is on my list this month to read for my 50 by 50 / Anne's challenge for reading the classics. All right, then I got the last book of Eleanor Dare by Kimberly Brock, and I was trying to think of like who read this, and I think it was Anne. Well, I mean, at the time I thought it was Anne. Now I know it was Anne, and I'd heard Anne talk about this last year, I think, and that she had read this. It is a story about the lost colony of Roanoke from Virginia during the time of the colonization of America, and it sounds intriguing and interesting, and I've always wondered about Roanoke, and I've always wondered about all these things. And then I remembered and went back and read Anne's review, and she didn't seem to think that it was like the most awesome book on the planet, so I might still read it. But I'm kind of like, I don't know. Anyway, I'm so thankful for friends who will leave reviews and tell you the stuff and, be honest, because it really has helped me like just clean out so many things. So many books and so many tangents and whatever, right? Just to have someone be like, don't read that, you'll hate it. Okay, then I was reading Agatha Christie's biography last month, and she talked about a book that she wrote called Absent in the Spring. And I can't remember why or what she was saying about it, but I think that the book, she wrote it under her pen name, Mary Westmacott. I'm under the impression that that is the name she used when she wrote romances, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me. But I think that this one is about a woman who, like, gets it in her head that her husband isn't interested in her anymore. So she kind of goes on this journey of, like, self-discovery, I believe. It says it's a romantic adventure, a novel of romantic adventure and intrigue. So I'm hoping it doesn't go off the rails, right? I'm hoping, like, she figures it out, you know, she eats a cookie, she takes a nap, she goes home, and she's like, okay, like, this is the life I want. So hopefully it will go that way, but I'll give it a try. All right, and then this book, I went to this neat little used bookshop that I had never been to before, and I can't remember what it's called. It's in Webb City, which is pretty much like attached to Joplin. It's called Somewhere in Time Bookshop. And I liked it. They had mostly new stuff in there, but around the counter, the guy had antique books. And so I found this one. It's called Sevenoaks by JG Holland. And I did read on it to see what it was about, and then I forgot. But I think that it's kind of like just a story about like an estate and the people who live there and like what they do. And I don't know. It was published in 1875. So we'll see. But I thought the cover was pretty. It looked cool on my shelf. Okay, and then I got this book, which is The California Gold Rush. This is like a kid's middle grade sort of part of a series. You guys have probably seen these, right? Maybe if you're a homeschooler, you've seen these. And they just tell different stories about times from history. They're not like, they're more well done than, they're more in depth than like a children's book, but they're definitely written for children to read. They're just kind of like written well because they're old. This one's written in 1950. But my daughter, who is 17, she's going to be a senior. She's really interested in the gold rush and kind of that era of history. But she's got a lot on her plate, and I know she's not going to want to read like a big old fat adult, you know, documentary book on it. So I was like, I'll give her this, and she can just kind of get the basics. And then if she wants to pursue it further, we can find her some other stuff, but that might just give her the basic gist, right, and get it out of her system sort of a thing. And then the guy gave me 2 bookmarks. That one is like his advertising one, and then, oh, actually I bought that one. He didn't give it to me, but I thought that one was so cute because it's like a person my age. Yeah, you don't see that very often. Okay, so got those. Then, this is so funny. Okay, so I got this book, Around the World in 11 Years. And I thought, that sounds so good because I love Jules Verne. I love the Around the World thing. I love the Nellie Bly. I love like all the iterations of going around the world in a certain amount of days. So I open it up and I start flipping through it because it looks like, you know, I want to see what it's about or whatever. And then I find this. Yeah, this was somebody's treasure box book, and they were hiding something inside of it. And I was like, that is so funny, and also a real bummer because I really actually want to read this book. So I showed it to the guy, we got a laugh, and I decided to buy it just because I'm actually going to put like a little box in here, and I'm going to put like $10 or something in there. And then I'm going to have like a little note that says, you know, the story of me finding this book. And then someday one of my kids is going to see that and be like, hey, that sounds like such a great book. I love Jules Verne. Da, da, da. I'm going to pull off the shelf and they're going to find that and they're going to be like, ha ha, so funny. And they'll keep their $10. They can put another little prize in there for the next person who finds it. Stick it back on the shelf. It's going to be like hidden treasure in my library. I've told my kids, like, when you guys inherit this library, don't just pack the whole thing and go up to Goodwill because there's a lot of stuff in here that I'm like hiding for you. There's a lot of like very expensive books here. rare books that you're going to want to keep or sell. But anyway, I got to find the actual, an actual copy of this without the pages torn out, because it actually sounds like a good story. It says it's by Patience, Richard, and John Abbe. And so I think it's just, I don't know if they're like missionaries' kids or what, but they travel to different places around the world in 11 years. And so, and it's, it's a vintage book. It was published in 1936. So how fun. And it's dedicated to Mama and Papa. So I think this will really actually be an awesome read. And I've never seen this before, but I just thought that was so funny that it's like been destroyed. All right. And then before I get into the books that I got today, I did go to the FedEx store. I was dropping something off. And when I got there, I realized they had like this whole section of stationery type stuff that was made by local people. I was like, that is so cool. I'm going to get some of that stuff. So if anybody wants to be pen pals, my address is below. But I got this really pretty stationery. And it has these different mushrooms on it. Just thought it was so cute. And it's so hard to find like actual stationery. Usually it's just like cards, right? But I did get some cards because I like cards too. But this is something that I guess painted by a local woman named Veronica. And I'm not sure, but this bridge looks an awful lot like the one I was just on today. So we have, I think, 7 lakes in our town. So I'm not positive, but I think that was. And then this also, I totally forgot. This I actually wanted to show you guys today, and I just forgot to go up there. But this is the little chapel that we have. And it's really close to where I was there at the lake today. So she's painted that. And then this one is just like a forest trail, which we have tons of trails. Northwest Arkansas is kind of like the hot spot for bike trails right now. We just opened up here in our town a trail lift. So it's kind of like a ski lift, but it's a bike lift. So you park and get on your bike, put your bike on like the lift with yourself, and you get taken with this tram like up the hill and dropped off at the bike trails, and then you can take the trails down the hill. So I was just like, it's not that steep of a hill. I'm sorry if you're like a mountain biker and you think it's so cool and you're like totally ready to come to Northwest Arkansas and do that thing. If you are, please like look me up, because I'd love to say hi and etc. But I'm also like, just ride up the hill, guys. I don't even know. It's a lot of money and a lot of space and a lot of cars and a lot of traffic. And I think it's possible that that thing either opened today or this week or something, because there's so many people in town. There are people riding their bikes up from Bentonville. When I drove down to Bentonville, I could see all these people riding their bikes up, like they had got a hotel in Bentonville and were riding their bikes up to Bella Vista just to do this thing. And I'm like, if you could ride that far, why do you need a lift? I don't know. It's a whole thing. Anyway, I got these postcards also that someone made to make it look old-fashioned. But look, there's the lift, right? Not old-fashioned. Brand new fashioned, actually. It's funny. I don't even know. Okay, so if you want to be pen pals, I'll write you a letter on my new stuff. I have taken a pretty long break from pen paling, so I do need to write back to a few pen pals. But I'd love to have more, and I'd love to be off my break. Okay, and then I got these. Some kid in town is making freeze-dried candy. So these are freeze-dried Skittles. Frittles, he calls them. Okay, so let's get into the stuff that I picked up today. So, today was weird because I mostly like shopped for things that I don't even know if I'm going to read. Because like I want to read all this like cozy, easy, chill out, chick lit, beach reads, summer reads, fiction stuff that everybody's talking about. And I struggle so bad because I'm having a hard time paying attention. I'm just I'm a nonfiction history person. I don't know. Historical fiction bugs me because I'm sitting there picking out all the inconsistencies like a nerd. And I don't know what it is, but I feel like maybe if I could read more fiction, I would lighten up a little on like everything in my life. So I picked out a bunch of fiction that I thought would be clean. Like, even if I don't necessarily think it sounds good, if I think it was clean, if I thought it was clean, I went ahead and tried it. I got home and looked up everything, and I think there's only 6. There are 6 that... There's 5 that had enough content, according to Goodreads, that I probably just, decided not to read them. There's one that it was a Christian fiction, like a Christian romance, but I only bought it for my daughter, and once I kind of looked at the reviews, it's probably better for adults, and so I decided to put that one on Pango too. So my Pango is packed out if you're looking for books, but anyway, can't recommend them because that's why I put them on Pango. Anyway, so I have organized these in order of how much I think that I will like them, down to I don't think I'll like them at all, but I'm going to give them a try anyway. But first, these 2 aren't part of that. These 2 are just things I found. So I found this Cookbook United States. This one was for the 200-year anniversary. 1776 to 1976, they put together this cookbook. Kansas City, I think, is where this came out of. So I thought that was so cool, right? Because here we are on the 250th. So I will make a little note in the front for future generations, but this says, "To Sally from Dolores, 1975 Christmas." So anyway, got that. And then I also found this devotional. It's Lincoln's Devotional. It has a foreword by Carl Sandburg, who my kids read his children's poetry for part of their school stuff. And I guess Lincoln had a devotional. I just kind of skimmed the information on this, so I will probably get back to you guys with the actual information. But he had this devotional. Here's a photograph of it. And he signed his name in it. And it's called The Believer's Daily Treasure, or Text of Scripture Arranged for Every Day in the Year. And it's from the Religious Tract Society in London. And it's from 1852. And every day of the year, it has like a little title. It has a scripture, and then it has like a little verse. So let's see what it has for June. I think it's June 12th today. It says, "To seek the salvation of others. He which converteth the sinner from the error of his way shall save a soul from death, and shall hide a multitude of sins." James verse 20. And then the little verse says, "My God, I feel the mournful scene. My bowels yearn o'er dying men, and fain my pity would reclaim, and snatch the firebrands from the flame." Sweet. Okay, so yeah, like I said, these are going to go in order of how likely I am to like them. So this one is a kind of a textbook on Victorian philosophy, Victorian minds. It's just like a cultural study of Victorian times and the literature. There's a lot of transitions that happened during the Victorian times. Transitions in thoughts about religion, thoughts about creation, thoughts about education, all kinds of philosophy. Thoughts about households, family, gender roles, not to mention the entire Industrial Revolution changed a lot of thoughts about a lot of things. Thoughts about people in the workplace, thoughts about, rights, civil rights, basic human rights, etc. And so it's just kind of a study of that kind of stuff. I think I'm going to like that. This one also is kind of a study-ish book. This is called The Jewel House by Deborah E. Harkness. And this is Elizabethan London and the Scientific Revolution. So again, kind of another Revolution era type book. But rather than being during the Victorian times, it was during the Elizabethan era. So interesting. I think I will like that. But I will have to read it slowly. And then these 2 books, I've read these before. These are the Tuscany books by Frances Mays, Under the Tuscan Sun and Every Day in Tuscany. By the way, I'm putting all these in the description box for you guys in case I'm going too fast or whatever. I did read these years ago, and I really liked them. It was really interesting to me. It was even before I started really traveling, and so it kind of put the travel bug in me, I think, to a degree. And I just like reading nonfiction things about people who live in other places and what they do and what their life is like. And I ended up giving them to my mom too, I think, and she enjoyed them. So I got these. I'll reread them at some point. And then I found this book. This is called Camp 9 by Vivian Schiffer. By Vivian Schiffer. And she is a Arkansas resident, native, possibly, I'm not sure. Anyway, she's from Arkansas. And this is published by the U of A Press in Fayetteville. And it's a story, it's a fictional story, but it talks about after World War II, when Japanese people were persecuted in America and sent to different camps. And I had heard a lot about this growing up because I grew up in Oregon, where a lot of camps were, and just a lot of this stuff took place right there, being on the West Coast. But apparently there was a camp here in Arkansas also. And so this tells a fictional story about that. And I've never actually read anything about that time of history. So I know nothing. But I want to know. This book I'll probably enjoy. This is a middle grade called The Midwife's Apprentice. It is by Karen Cushman. It is a Newbery Award winning book. And it's just a little middle grade, right? Set in Middle Ages times, I suppose. Then I got these books, which I've tried to read these before. These are the Jan Karen, whatever. What's her little world called? Mitford. The Mitford books. And I read the Christmas one like years ago. And then I think I read the first one a really long time ago. And I don't know if I'm going to like these. Let me know if you guys think I'll like these. They are kind of cozy, villagey, but they're American village, right? I'm pretty sure that it takes place in America. And then many of you will be happy to see I found a Georgette Hare. This is a civil contract, which at first I thought that I had it, but then I just realized I recognized the artwork from other things, right? Because it's a well-known piece of art. And I've read one other Georgette Hare. I have several on my shelf. I need to read more. I know I can't judge her by one book. I read Arabella. And I also read it while exhausted traveling through England. So, you know, I mean, I probably should give a little bit more grace. But I didn't really enjoy it. But I am definitely committed to reading more Georgette Hare. I will. So anyway, pick that up. Then I got a couple of books that I have actually owned before. A lot of this stuff is like from like late 90s, early 2000s. And that's why I think I'm not going to like, that's why I'm not sure if I'm going to like pretty much all the rest of this. But this one is All Together in One Place by Jane Kirkpatrick. Jane Kirkpatrick lived, I'm not sure if she's still living, in Oregon, and right smack in the middle of everywhere that I grew up, all the places that we hunted and fished and my grandma and all the things. And so she writes with a Oregon voice about places that I know. And a lot of her stories are set in pioneer days. This one is. And then also The Sweetness to the Soul, I'm pretty sure, is also set during the times of the pioneers. And I mean, it's all the things. She's talking about huckleberries. Like, she's talking about all the things. Like, she knows Oregon. So when I was much younger, like probably 20 years ago, and I was in Oregon, and I was just like, whoop-de-doo, I'm in Oregon. I wasn't really interested in reading these. I had them because I had just become a Christian in my late teens, early 20s. And so I wanted to find all the Christian fiction I could, and these were coming out, but I never did actually read them. I think that they were probably too like difficult for me at that age. So I'm probably going to be just fine with them now, and I might just love them, but I just kind of already have like a feeling, right, from years ago. And now it'll probably make me feel nostalgic, honestly, since I've been away from Oregon for so long. All right, and then this book I really don't know if I'm gonna like, but wow, is it pretty. Okay, so this is The Looking Glass Wars by Frank Bedore. I do not read fantasy at all. This is like a Alice in Wonderland retelling. Apparently it's part of a series. Some people say it's amazingly awesome and some people say that it's absolutely horrible. And I think if I can go into it telling myself that the writing is going to be horrible, but maybe the story will be fun, then maybe I will like it. But if you take the dust jacket off of it, this is like really pretty. Isn't that pretty? So I'm just like, I don't know, it's such a pretty book. But I really don't know anything about this. So you guys let me know. Am I gonna enjoy this or am I gonna be crying in my tea? I think if I could understand, like I need to get in the head of the person who loves fantasy. And I think that requires suspending belief, lightening up, like I talked about earlier, just being there for the story and taking it all in and letting it happen and not trying to psychoanalyze it. All the things I'm really bad at, but I want to be good at it. Like, I want to like fantasy. They all look so cool and pretty and fun. So we'll try it and see. Okay, and then finally, this video has gone on forever. I apologize. But, you know, if you're still watching, then hi. Thanks for sticking around. I got these. And I read a Lori Wick book like when I first became a Christian. I think it was The Princess. I read it when I was camping. That's all I really remember, but I remember going through it really fast and actually kind of liking it. And it is a fantasy story, actually. But that was like way back in the day, right? And now I'm old and boring and psychoanalyzing everything. So I don't know if I like these, but the reason why I went ahead and picked them up is there are 3. I don't think they go in order. I think they're just part of like a series, but I think they're just part of like a themed series. But there's The Proposal, The Pursuit, and The Rescue. And I got them because I know it's hard to believe by the artwork on these books, but they're supposed to be set in the Regency, although this girl is wearing a t-shirt and a year 2000s sundress from Walmart. But if I do like these and decide to keep them, I'm definitely buying a different set with different cover art. But she's supposed to be somebody from the Regency time, 1810, from London. And so is she, who kind of looks like my stepmother, who's taught the 2nd grade in the 90s. Anyway, and then this one, where again, what is this? What are you wearing? And his outfit doesn't even look real. It looks like a Disney cartoon. His whole thing looks like a Disney cartoon. Like this cover art is horrible. It's horrible. What are we doing here, people? But if they're good, then they might be good recommendations for the Jane Austen July prompt, right? Where you read like something that's inspired or retelling or whatever. I'll let you know, because I am going to check them out before then. All right, and that is the end of this video that I have literally worked on all day long. I hope you like it. Hope everybody's doing well. Have you picked up any good books lately? Let me know. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know really, honestly, if there's anything that I showed you that you think that I'm not going to be okay with. I don't like excessive profanity, especially when it's just someone shooting off their mouth and it's not actually like, you know, falling off a cliff to their doom or anything like that. And I definitely don't like open door scenes or anything that you should not be reading about other people's consummation of anything. So I don't like that stuff, and I can't read things that involve like massive harm and violence towards children. Other than that, I'm probably good. So let me know if there's anything here that I should avoid. Otherwise, guys, hope you're doing well. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.